Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. My name is Olu Yemi Adeosun, and tonight we are looking at a very fascinating topic. What is HR doing? Our facilitator for tonight is a regular, Victor Agu, is a full member of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria and is an HR practitioner. So without further ado, just delve right into this session. And it's my privilege, pleasure, and delight to bring to the virtual lecture Victor Argo to speak to us on HR. What is HR doing?
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor. Good evening, everyone, once again. Good evening, Abigail, Vitus, Bukola, Mirisola. It's a pleasure to be here. We hope that others will join us. It's one day after Valentine, so I believe that the world is serious again, and we can just get going. So we want to look at a very interesting topic today. There's this sarcastic question sometimes. So, what's HR doing? Again, when you look at the role of HR, aside preparing salaries at the end of the month, aside firing people, hiring people, what's like the extra thing, what's like the extra value that HRs would want to bring to the table? And this is the tone of our conversation tonight. And I want to be sure that we would have a very good learning session, and we'll have 3, 4, 5 things to pick from today's lesson, right? So today, basically, we'll be looking at the basic rules of HR in organizations, which we all know, or which some of us might be getting a better access to. We would look at key HR activities. We'll see how to translate HR activities to key results. Very, very important, because we're in a world where we are guided by numbers, we are guided by results, and then we'll try to look at KPIs, the use of metrics and analytics to track progress, and then we'll try to conclude in no time. So I would plead that we are in this conversation, we share learning points, and then we really have a good time. All right, so to the beginning of the conversation, what is it that HR will do? The beautiful thing around HR is that there are just a lot of things to do. Maybe sometimes we cannot cascade these things into very, very, very defined, distinct points. Maybe some other times it's just not visible enough. We don't see these things, and it's just like an everyday kind of thing. And somehow we are just lost in a whole lot of things. But it's a good time to remind ourselves that for those of us that are HR professionals, we are in a very wholesome, career path. What we do is so important. It's so strategic, and for some MDs who have done it all, who they've prepared payroll before, even though they've not prepared the right way to be prepared. They've done recruitment. Anybody can assume they can do recruitment. Until they hire, and then there's trouble, and they have to change the people, and other persons will come in. But we should remind ourselves that we are the heart. So many other practitioners who want to say they are also the heart. When finance people get into this conversation, is also a big one. But HR's role is ensuring that people are engaged, people are productive, and we shouldn't forget the strategic partner part of our role, where the intention is to collaborate with leadership to drive organizational goals, through people, organizational excellence, business performance through people. And by the time this is a step-by-step discussion, by the time we get to the end of this discussion, you'll see that the conclusion is just saying, you know what, master your people, be at the heart of giving people excellence, and you'll just be able to do a whole lot, right? And HR strategic partner part of our role is something that we cannot put under the carpet. And of course, we all know the daddy and mommy of the organization. We are the people that, we get to support well-being, fair treatment, healthy work environment. And again, HR operations. Oh boy, HR operations is wide, where you have to oversee a couple of things that are happening in real time. So this is just like a refresher. The goal of this conversation is to say, okay, see, these plenty activities, how do we translate these things into results? And then we try to also remind ourselves of what we are doing day by day, right? So why is this important? It is important, it is the responsibility of HR to build, it is the responsibility of HR to build a skilled workforce and promote growth individually and corporately. Now, let's remind ourselves of this conversation that you are going to, for those of us that are in HR mentorship book club, the book we reviewed last month in January, we were reminded that as managers, you would judge your success. As HR people, we judge our success by the success of the team, not just on individual accolades. So the fact that we are striving, we are positioning ourselves to build a skilled workforce, emphasis on skilled. So we are doing everything to ensure that we have the best talents at our disposal, and then we are promoting their growth. That's the whole essence of talent management. We are promoting their growth both individually and corporately. There was one of those webinars where we talked about, employee goals, employer ambition, and you want to see that there is a meeting point within this. So it's important for us to realize and remind ourselves that HR would always be in the scope. Now, before we go on with this conversation, I think it was on Tuesday or thereabout, I can't remember. I think it was Dr. Adeosun that shared on HR mentorship group pages. I don't know if any of us saw 5 things CEOs want from HR. Is there anybody that can relate to seeing anything like that within this week? 5 things CEOs want from HR. Let me even see if we follow the conversations. Are there people who can relate? Whether with the chat box or, in the chat box, because we are all muted. Did we ever see 5 things CEOs want from HR? Okay, if you can relate, you can do it to share in the chat box. But then just for a refresher, and again, it's important for us to take these things out of today's meeting. Number 1 is that show what is working using numbers. So if we have not here, just recently joined. All right, no, that's fine. He shared something and it was very insightful that we should be HR people that we show what's working with numbers. So you need to prove that your plans help the company to track their goals by numbers. There's this saying that whatever you cannot back up with data, whatever you cannot back up with evidence in terms of numbers is just your opinion. And most times when people give their opinion, people have the right to receive your opinion or not receive your opinion. So show what's working with numbers. Number 2 will be the advocate of change. So we are people that if there is a better technology, if there's something that allows you to do a lot of things at low cost or do some things faster, very soon we'll talk about agility as part of our HR operations. If we are able to have systems where we are driving change that has very quantifiable returns for the company, the CEO is definitely going to be interested in you. And of course, talent vision, strategic talent vision. What we are saying is, talent acquisition. We cannot run away from that fact. For most of us that are generalists and we have a lot of areas we branch into HR in our day-to-day, we do recruitment, we do performance management, we do a whole lot of things. I personally, as much as, when you speak about these things, everybody here, we do recruitment from time to time. If I'm supposed to rank my core areas of HR, I don't think recruitment is going to be up there. For whatever reason, I consider it a little bit stressful, right? Is there anybody that agrees or is on my chain of thought? But then there are some recruitment specialists here. Please, let's keep this interactive. We have a couple of persons here. There are some recruitment specialists here who, they love recruitment and all that. And it's a very important part of HR. Right? So I'm not going to say because somehow I rather want to do some other things than recruitment. I'm not going to say recruitment or talent acquisition is something that is not very important for us as HR, right? And so, okay, it feels like I'm the only person who probably thinks recruitment might be somewhat stressful. I want to pray to just get the best talent and not have anything to recruit, maybe in the next couple of months or in the next year. But of course, talent vision and then CEOs want to see the return on investment. So you have said we should do training, we should do this particular thing, we should do that particular thing. What is the return? What is the return? And again, growth. We want to be HRs that we are at the heart of growth. So the numbers are growing, the organization is growing, whatever way you want to classify growth, HR is also at the center of it. So don't forget HR people that show workings with numbers, what is happening in other places, in other organizations, what are you trying to bring into our own organization? And of course, driving change, like I said, talent vision, talent acquisition, focusing on ROI, how that, okay, we have a return on investment on whatsoever we are saying we should do in terms of numbers, and of course, being in the heart of growth, right? Being at the heart of growth, rather. Those are some key things that we shared, and it's also very important for this conversation. So there is that part of HR that should be reminded that we are supposed to align every of our activities with our business goals. So every HR activity, there's that question of, so I want to do this particular thing. I want the HR department to do this. I want people to do this, but how is it in tune with business success? And it's important that we as HR people, we are reminded that we understand our business. So if you are within fintech, for instance, you can't be doing HR and you don't really understand the dynamics of the fintech space, right? You don't understand technology, you don't understand CBN regulations. As fintech is that industry where flexible working environment is, top notch. People want to do a lot of hybrid or even work from home while still maintaining productivity. So whatever we are trying to, so if you are saying you want to push in flexible work or you want to do a particular type of training, how is it going to bring to the numbers, and how can we assure that these things will translate to business success, right? Also for productivity, it is important that we understand that employees who are focused, right, who are very tied to their roles, have clear goals that have been set in front of them. So people are not just flying blind. So as much as we do a lot of things within HR, there's also that need. There's that need for us to create systems where people are productive because they have a full understanding of the end goal. Okay, I'm looking at chat box, manufacturing, and don't understand the metric terms and market of the product. Okay. Again, that's why we have conversations like this, so that people don't get to ask us those kind of questions of what we are doing. It starts from the point of understanding. So for most of us, we might have to live here and do a whole lot of research. And that's why we have, broken into the business partnering part of this whole thing. You should, HR, you should understand your business. You should. So when you have SOPs that you have built, a lot of things that are running side by side, you should understand your business. So that's me reacting to that conversation in the chat box. So whether you're in manufacturing or you're in the health sector, or you're in agriculture, you're in finance, you should understand. In one of those webinars, there was one of those times where we also advised that apart from understanding your business, it's not a bad idea to also understand the numbers, so that you are able to give initiatives that are not they are not astray. You should know, okay, at the end of the day, how much is coming into the organization? What are we selling? Are we even making sales? And these are questions that we should ask. And I think this is my favorite of all of them, because this is a space that I play in very, very frequently, both, personally and corporately, for agility. Agility as in things happening very fast, things being able to adapt to changes, So you are building a system where your organization can cope with, shocks here and there, economic changes. There's a policy from somewhere. There is, there's a strike action happening. So many things, both internally and externally. What are the things we got to do to mitigate these issues? And how do we do these things fast? How do we do these things fast? I'm not saying that we should be very, very fast and go into error, but when you are managing a team, when you are within a system and you can give results that are very, very fast, is a plus to you. Is a plus to you. So if you are going to be doing recruitment, so you are going to fill a particular role, how fast can you do that as HR? How fast can I do that? In times past, when we talk about time to hire, some persons will say 1 month, 30 days, some person will even say 6 weeks. But with several consulting companies and several avenues that we have now, people are making hiring decisions within 1 week, depending on how critical roles are. So you imagine there's a gap within your organization, and you know that I use recruitment as an example. It could be training, it could be anything. So HR, let's have this conversation as more like a reminder where we are telling ourselves that in part of all our strategy and different things that we want to do, let's be fast. Let's be fast. So if you are going to prepare payroll, for instance, and it's supposed to be ready on the 20th and all, there's really no point why it's going to be ready on the 22nd or it's going to be ready on the 23rd. Agility, very, very, very important. Okay, so let me say this in passing, and I want to hope that some people can maybe relate. I just want to hope, especially when you are in some unstructured environment and you are working with your CEO, your MD CEO, or anything like that. I think from experience, there are 2 times when I've seen this kind of person is very, very angry. I don't want to say angry. Let me say the right word is irritated, like uneasy. Sometimes when your MD comes out of their office and they're like, okay, so what are you working on right now? Like, what are you doing now? I don't know. Can anybody relate with that? It's as if they are coming for you to ask you, so what are you doing now? Or they are just angry as to, okay, what is that person doing? What is that person doing? Please, let's make this, unless we are working in very, very, very perfect places, right? Management feel HR is always ideal. I'm not sure I got that, but I'm just saying times when MD or management will come and they'll start asking, so what are you working on now? So what are you doing now? As if there's that bit of insecurity that, it's possible this person is not even doing anything and 30 days will soon pass and it will be time for payroll. I've noticed that happen a couple of times, and it's just that's why we have several systems we try to put in place, such that before you come and ask HR, what am I working on or what am I doing? There is a system in place where you can see, where you can track, where you can know where I'm sending reports. And maybe that question of what are you doing now is not very necessary, right? And sometimes this is the overarching strategy we can use to discuss with our line managers or discuss with different departments, where let's have a system in place where there is no need for a manager, there is no need for a superior to really be asking, what are you doing now? Hence, we've had those meetings, we've had those sessions, everybody is clear on what they are supposed to do, everybody is submitting reports. So in the beginning of the week, for instance, are goals set? Are there feedback measures within those periods? And then after that period, at the end of the month, at the end of the week or at the end of the month, regardless of how you want to do it, are there reports? So when reports come in, how well do we align these reports with where we are at every point in time? Again, agility. So you want to live here, feeling on top of your game. You want to live here feeling that there is no need, right? If you are going to be asking me any question, let it just be that you're asking me for updates. So as HR, let it just be that you're asking me for updates. But that system where there's that, what are you working on now? What are you working on now? There is a little bit of an error there, which is something that we might need to correct. Okay, thank you very much, Felicia. She says, top management feel like HR is not doing anything to push team members, but expecting staff to get every benefit. Yeah, thank you very much. So that's one very big bias, that we are not pushing things. There are no structures in place. They can't feel the work. But then when it comes to having to champion for benefits and salaries at the end of the month, we are there. We are there. So it irks them. It makes them feel like, are you really, really whining us at this point in time? And again, that's why we are having these conversations, right? So let's look at an example in practice just to give us maybe a wider view to this. So let's say we want to increase customer retention or want to get new customers. How am I as HR, how am I going to align my strategies? You know that sometimes during recruitment, it's possible for you to get the best candidate, but for what your organization is trying to do at that point in time, the person is skilled, the person has all the experience and all that. It's just possible that the person is not fitting into the culture of your organization, is not fitting into your strategic goal. So sometimes you want, let's say you want to work around customer retention. So when you are trying to do your recruitment, thank you very much. I see that from Adeboye. Best candidate, but a misfit. It's very, very possible. It's very, very possible that you have people who come, they are smart, they can do this, they can do that, but it might not be a square peg in a square hole. So there are so many things that you want to consider. That's why I said the beginning for any HR person is to show understanding. So how many of you have seen, and this is not an HR conversation, again, not because I want to mention names, but let's just say business leaders. I don't want to say business leaders too openly. Let's just say business owners. Again, let's say one of the owners of cement manufacturing company in Nigeria. We already know who I'm talking about in that sense, but have you heard him speak and then he's talking about numbers? Don't let me just narrow it down, but have you heard some business leaders, or have you heard some people who they are speaking about numbers and they are telling you about growth ratio, they are telling you about inflation, they are telling you about indices, price of crude oil, crude oil per barrel. Have you heard when people make those kind of intelligent conversations? And so sometimes business leaders are at that level, right? Business leaders are at that level, but HR should also go beyond, okay, recruitment, performance management, and all. You are in the renewable energy sector. So what about renewable energy do you also know? Right? And within this space, what about that do I also know? So back to our recruitment, when we are bringing people in, people who are, customer focused, people who are customer centric, probably from their previous engagement, their previous jobs. And then if we're having to do trainings to people who are on ground, we know that customer retention is the goal. So we are going to be having a lot of customer training, learning and development sessions where customer service skills are just top notch. And for people who they have their contribution to customer service, we reward them. So when we are saying align all your strategies to a particular goal, we are saying identify the goal, and whether you are doing recruitment or you are doing performance management or you are doing L&D, whatever you are trying to do, you are hitting on those strategies. And management can see these things as well. So that's one thing that we have to put in place. Now, let's go to some key HR activities that we are very, very much aware. And we'll just pick a couple of them and do a refresher and still speak about them. Now, recruitment and selection, like I said, for me, it's not my favorite. I can pick 1, 2, 3 areas before I come to recruitment, just personally. Yeah. But for people who they probably love recruitment and again, like I said, I doubt there's any part of HR unless you are getting very, very strategic. In our day-to-day HR, I believe that at some point in the other, you have to do recruitment. So it is our duty to ensure that we are hiring the right talent for the right roles. And so what is HR doing? Several times when we try to do recruitment, some of us don't start from the very beginning. Some of us, we don't start from the very beginning. We start recruitment because somebody has left the organization and there's a space, and we just, either use ChatGPT or we just ask our friend or we just post something on any of our networks, and we have people jumping and then applying. And sometimes it can be very, very frustrating. I've had instances where I was looking for one person and I saw about 50 CVs for a particular role, and I could not still shortlist two. I could not still shortlist two. So we are saying that before we even get to, posting jobs and doing screening and all that, how about things like our job analysis? How about speaking to line managers, having a stakeholder approach where we are even trying to find out what exactly do we need for a particular role, right? And going over these steps one by one, so that it is wholesome. So again, in our organization or in our processes, do we have SOPs that guide our recruitment and selection? Do we have interview guidelines? Do we have, do we have a statement that shows what we are supposed to start with, how we are supposed to do this, and how we are? So if we do not have that, we should have SOPs for, we should have SOPs for these areas. We should have SOPs for the HR department. So if you are starting an HR department, for instance, you don't have all your SOPs in place. Other departments, they don't have SOPs in place. These are things that we need to check for. How about training and development, right? Again, if I'm biased about recruitment and all that, I would never be biased about training and development. I love this. And this is where HR can perform. If you are doing performance management, for instance, and you are not taking training and development along, there's a misfit somewhere. And this training and development thing we are talking about is an ongoing basis. Yeah, is on an ongoing basis. You are not training because you just want to do trainings. Remember, we said we are talking about the business goals, and then we are trying to put trainings together that are relevant. Not all trainings are relevant. There are some trainings that are needed. There are some trainings that you do not just need. Some trainings are costly, some are free of charge, right? Sometimes you just tell your staff to go to Udemy, maybe with their line managers, for instance, and you approve some free trainings for them to do, and make sure that they give you a sort of report after taking those trainings. So the fact that you can go and do like a skills audit, and then you can fish out people within different organizations that need certain level of training, that's your level of impact. So this kind of conversation is, what is the extra thing? What benefits? What more can we do as HR, aside going to work, doing records management, trying to prepare payroll at the end of the month, for those of us that do that and doing all of that? What is the value add? What is the extra thing that we can do? Right, and we have said you need to equip employees with skills that are needed. In my organization, for instance, or anywhere I work, because I prepare slides every week, and I just wake up and there's just a need to prepare slides. And also when I'm within my organization and we want to do knowledge sharing sessions or want to do things like that, one of the things I tell all of my staff is anything that is called presentation and all, go and prepare slides. And I found that to work every time, because people who they knew nothing about preparing slides, just because it is a system in place, they start putting a couple of things together, right? And slides are made easy. You, if you want to be a traditional PowerPoint person, beautiful, you can do that. There are several AI tools that can help you prepare these things. You can even go on Canva and you see some templates, and then you put these things together. So training, it could be that it's an Excel kind of thing. People need to know how to use spreadsheets. So you are not just relaxing, you are getting those loopholes, you are fishing them out, and you are giving them the requisite type of training. And if you have the liberty to, send people out for certain trainings or bring facilitators in, training is something you just cannot sleep on as an HR person. And how is this important for us? We know that competency levels will jump up. Of course, performance management, like I said, your L&D and performance management, they are like brothers and sisters. They go hand in hand. What processes are we setting in place to monitor, to improve employee performance? So when we do performance management, most times we have this emphasis on the end goal should be employee development. Employee development. Along the line, there might be somebody within your team who requires a mentoring need. There might be somebody who requires a coaching need. You know, coaching and mentoring, they are a bit different. You know, coaching can be skill specific. You might need somebody to perform on a particular role, and then you are, you know, either infusing that skill by training, or you're having someone monitor the person, or it's short term. You can do a quick one and then you coach. But mentoring is like on a long term. So sometimes some people just want to have that sense of, okay, HR is invested in me. HR is invested in this department. There's like a mentoring kind of system in place. And that's how you can have young talents come into the organization. And over time, they see that, you know what? You know, when HR asks you, for instance, that, oh, that ICANN exam that you have been doing, how far with the ICANN exam? When is your next diet? When is your next diet? Why have I not heard anything about your ICANN? Out of the blues, you know, that's a system you want to put in place. So employee development on the job, out of the job, you know, before you even get performance appraisals and all that. And how are you able to do that? Remember, we had mentioned that whatever anybody is doing within the organization, we should see that everything is striking on goals. So at the beginning of the period, for instance, the organization wants to get 500 million naira in revenue. So as HR, you know, recruitment, how is this going to happen? Training and development, how is this going to happen? Performance management, how is this going to happen? Let's not forget the different legs of our balance scorecard. Thankfully, we are HR professionals here. Whatever we're doing as HR people should have a financial standpoint, so that we are not being people that only appear to the MD whenever there is a need to spend money. You know, yes, training is good, but it doesn't mean that the only time you would appear before MD is when you just want us to, you know, use a paycheck for anything, right? So that's that for the financials. How about, you know, your learning and growth? Your learning and growth. We've talked about training and development today. How about your internal processes? What more can we put on the table? What more? How can we see that our processes are very, very clear and everybody can follow? What sanctions do we have in place when people don't meet up? So as much as we are trying not to be disciplinarians, we are also trying to see that, you know, all of these things are in place. And what strategies are we aligning? You remember we said every form of strategy you ever want to think of, you are putting these things together, right, to hit up with your business goals. So for some people, it can be that you are just trying to reward people. You are trying to reward people that have done well. You know, you are rewarding them and everyone is just on par. Again, employee engagement. I'm going to say that employee engagement should be looked at holistically, from the regular team bonding sessions that we all know to understanding what is the generational divide around your workforce. Do you have a lot of Gen Zs, for instance? Do you have a lot of Gen Zs? And for Gen Zs, TGIF might be a big deal to them over brainstorming and all those things. Yeah, those things are very beautiful, but you have to really understand if once in a while you need to put in a TGIF. And that's why we said one of the strategies I put together here is regular surveys. Yeah, regular surveys where you are having people really say what they want. I know some employers might not really like the whole anonymous survey thing, because sometimes what you have in questions like that is, do you like your work environment? Do you like where you are currently working? Anonymously. That's if they can trust you. Because there are some surveys. I don't know if we follow that story when one employer asked the kind of question about anybody who is mentally stressed. I don't know. Is there anybody that remembers that conversation? If you can use the chat box. I think the question was, if you know you are mentally stressed, indicate. And then when people indicated, they fired all those people almost immediately. Oh, we are sorry to contribute to your mental health degradation. You know what? Just stop working so that you can focus on your mental health. But that's not what we're talking about. But if you can have, thank you very much. If you can have conversations where you are encouraging people to have anonymous, you know, we want to have systems where we have feedback and people, you are just able to, it wasn't a joke. I don't think it was a joke. I think it happened. So you want to have a system in place where people can talk and then you can see what is most important to people. And don't forget that people have unconscious biases, that's why I said don't force trainings, don't force the fact that you want certain things to happen, don't force certain level of things on your organization. You have to understand that you have to understand what people need, what is relevant to people at different points in time. Again, as we go on, for compliance and risk management, I had a friend who was trying to get a very major HR job, a very major gig. And I think 80% of the questions the person was asked was around compliance. For them, recruitment, all of those things, they had very good structures in place. They had the perfect employer branding and all that, but they had issues around compliance. And HRs can come to terms with workforce audit, compliance audit, where you are checking everybody in your organizations. Do they have contracts? Can anybody relate with working in a place? Maybe you became HR manager and you're trying to look for employment letter of people and you cannot find it. Is there anybody that can relate with something like that, where there are no contracts, some very, very funny things, from contracts, from, relationship with vendors, a couple of things. You want to check for contracts. You want to see, are they pay tax? Are they remitting tax? Are they remitting pension? So you are an HR somewhere and you are seeing that people are not collecting full salary. They will say there is deduction for tax, deduction for pension, but these things are never remitted. It's funny, but these things happen. Some organizations do that, and you have all the net salaries, but you never get all the remittances. So these are things that we need to check and ensure that the organization adheres to every labor law to avoid any legal risk. So there are some MDs sometimes that can just come and they're like, let's just do this and let's do this now. Let's just do when it has to do with severance, people leaving the organization and all that. Some people even want you to fire people immediately and they don't want to see them again the next day. So this is where we come in and we give our advisory. No, you don't do things that way. And we have always been told that if you are doing all your advisory and nobody is listening to you at some point, again, maybe you would have to be planning your exit. But if you are not going to be planning your exit, you should do as much advisory as possible. We will always remind ourselves that labor law gives us the barest minimum with these things, and we are told that we can do better. We can do better, right? So you might want to do diversity training. You might want to have policy reviews. For most issues that we have around HR, when you want to look for how to solve these issues, you go to policy. What is the policy saying? So if you are within your organization, for instance, one of the things you can do is a policy audit. It's not nice to have a system in place where your policy is silent on some matters. So what is your policy on, say, payroll management? What is your policy on recruitment? What is your policy on salary reviews? Different issues that you want to check. That is an extra value add that you want to bring to the organization. And what you are just doing is that you are protecting your company. You are protecting. You are just giving an extra in that sense. All right. Going forward, now let's talk about translating HR activities to key results. Please, am I sure that people are with me? Because I've been saying a whole lot of things. Can I see the chat box and see a certain level of live? We are following. I can hear you. Whatever you want to say. I just want to be sure that it's live. All right. Thank you very much, Eniola. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. There is live. All right. There's live. Okay. So translating HR results to, HR activities to key results. It's quite funny, or it's quite what's the word now? It's not nice to think that sometimes there can be a lot of activities and it's as if they are just asking you, show workings. Okay, you are doing a lot of work. That's why these days some people are saying sometimes you don't even measure your work by how frequent you go to the office. I hope you know that sometimes you can go to the office in the morning except we have perfect people here, because it happens to me. For those who know me personally, or those who maybe we've had some interaction, you can say, oh, okay, every time it's like if we are not having one training, we are doing this, we are doing this. But there are certain times you just get to the office one Monday morning or Tuesday morning, and you don't want to do anything. I don't want to use the word unproductive, but can we relate with times like that when we just don't feel like, I'm trying to say that the fact that we are within our office is not a guarantee that we'll do good work every time, actually. There are sometimes we can work better. Again, this is not a clamor for remote work or no remote work, but have you found sometimes when you worked better when you were at home? When you were wearing, for those of us that are guys here, I'm not going to be talking to the ladies on this, but I know that there are some guys here who wear shirts, they'll wear shirts up and then they'll be doing Teams meeting, but what is down is like a short knicker. So if you are guilty of this, you already know yourself, right? You wake up in the morning, for those of us that, we've done a level of remote work or hybrid work, you wake up in the morning, you probably brush, you don't take your bath, but maybe as early as 6:30 a.m., you've put on your system, you're already working, you're already productive, you go snap, do whatever you want to do, and you come back to work. It depends on the system, but sometimes key activities should translate to results. Nobody is going to reward that HR person where we feel that you are just in the office, you are just doing HR, we are not seeing results. And that's why we're having a conversation like this. And if there's anything, if there's a name, if there's another wing to this conversation, let's just say KPIs, discussion around KPIs, key performance indicators, KPIs. So if I'm going to even be ringing any bell from this point of our conversation to the end of the conversation, let it be KPIs. Let it be KPIs. So why? Because we need to measure the effectiveness of HR. And what are the indicators? What are the things that you can put inside your HR that you feel that these things should be measurable? These things are visible. These things are things that we can see. These things are things that MD, other people can see. And you will not come and be asking me, what am I doing? So let's just delve a little bit into KPI. And we have a couple of things that we can look at. So we've talked about recruitment a lot of times today. But then, what is the success rate of my recruitment process? So it's not just about talking about recruitment. Okay, I maybe attend an interview, or I'm speaking to Comfort, or I'm speaking to Felicia, and we're talking about recruitment and all. We might want to go deeper. What is the success rate? Sometimes when people come for interviews, they'll tell you all the beautiful things that you need to hear. And then when they start working, you are like, oh, how did I not spot this? How did I not spot this? So could that mean that maybe in your recruitment process, you could have done something better? There could have been an assessment. There could have been something, sometimes some people just come, they just perform one level, and for whatever reason, it's like, it's almost an automatic. So you are saying, okay, for the sake of success rate, the open positions and the field positions with the right candidate, how successful have I been? And you can count these things. So since you entered the organization, or let's say you are going to another organization and you are having an interview and they're asking you, so tell us about the things you've done. Oh, I can backtrack to my KPIs. In terms of recruitment, my success rate is top notch. Again, in one of my previous organizations, I can never forget how on LinkedIn, it was just a harmless post on LinkedIn where I posted looking for an architect. I just posted one or two things and I used all the hashtags here and there. And somebody was just doing a search randomly and saw that job ad, applied, went through all of the processes, and I think it's something that delights me till tomorrow, because that was, for those of us that were football freaks, when you hire somebody and you are happy, your MD is happy because, in quotes, the person knows the work, right? The person knows the work. So either you are trying to poach from somewhere, or you are trying to have a detailed recruitment process that is highlighting success rates. Please, Note, emphasis is not on recruitment. We have said a lot of things about recruitment. Now we are pushing further. What is the success rate? And of course, time to hire. We have talked about time to hire today. That one thing we should be putting together with our HR is agility. Agility as in things should happen fast. And my niche around HR, I am more HR tech, HR analytics, HR, assets L&D. I focus more in that area. And if you ask me, I rarely do things from scratch. For those of us who maybe we've been in those kind of trainings and all that, it is very rare for me to want to start anything from scratch. Either I'm trying to get an SOP, or I'm trying to do a slide, or I'm trying to, because I'm like, this world is filled with templates that I can adopt to anything I want to do, right? So we should play around that circle to see that whatever we can do to boost less time, something that should take 7 days because of your involvement, because of strategies that we are putting in place, is now taking something of 10 days. You are doing it in 2 days. You are doing it in 3 days. So if before you got into the organization, anytime they want to hire, it will take them 30 days, and you're able to do it in 1 week, in 2 weeks, why not? That's like an additive, right? And for training and development, what can we measure? Training effectiveness. Like I mentioned, places I've worked. I see people telling me that, man, especially for those who add one or two things to do with Excel, they're like, my Excel is better. I was able to do things happen faster. Errors are reduced. There is more accuracy in financial reporting. A lot of things. So in terms of trainings that you are introducing to your organization, what is their effectiveness, right? And of course, for employee engagement, okay, let me still go back. For employee development, in terms of employee development, promotions, how are people progressing? For performance management, I meant to say low performance becoming top performance, right? Low performance, you literally see people who were at a certain level. You can guide their process. You can see that these people, that's why I mentioned mentoring, I mentioned coaching, and a lot of other things that you want to do just to see that people are performing some more. Yeah, employee engagement, for instance, when people are connected to their job, retention rate. So we can boast of things like, since I joined this organization, only one person has left, or only 2 persons have left. And there are several reasons why people leave an organization. Unless, people relocate, some people have argued that if you want to double your salary, for instance, change your organization. So it's possible that somebody maybe got another job and then they were earning 300,000 in your organization and they are still earning 600,000. The likelihood that they will earn 600,000 in your organization, it might not happen in a couple of years in that sense. But I'm just trying to say that keeping all those factors constant, strong employee engagement, as much as you touch other areas, strong employee, which I've advised that this should be specific on. Remember when we said training and development, effectiveness of training, as in trainings that people need. Also, employee engagement. Don't just go and read employee engagement handbook and you see like 5 things you want to do and you're trying to load these things. No, HR, we should not force certain initiatives on the organization. If I'm within real estate, the way I do my own HR and my day-to-day activities, I can't put it inside Abigail's or Felicia's organization. She might be in hospitality. So if I bring all of these initiatives and I put it there, it might crash the system, which is why I've said times without number, understand your business, right? Understand your business. Again, engagement score. I've also talked about the fact that we should do as many surveys as we want to do, just so that we understand where we are at within our discussions or within our day-to-day, within our fiscal year, where people are. Also, compliance as in you want to look at audit success rates. When external auditors come into the organization and they're asking questions about this, they're asking questions about that, everything is in place. You have done well. You have done one better as HR. So if someone is asking, what's like the value add? What are you bringing into HR? These are key places you can function. You pick one of them. Okay, this week, in terms of compliance, what am I doing for my organization? In terms of performance management, what can I measure, right? In terms of recruitment, in terms of employee development, what are the things that I can measure? There are so many of them, yeah. And again, like I said, I'm an analytics person. I like to do my HR showing numbers, showing dashboards, showing a lot of things like that. And this kind of conversation is usually very, very important and rich to me. The reason being that we should be HR people that are objective. So it's not like you want to promote something because the person is pretty or the person is handsome. It's not that because I like you, that's why certain things should happen. Numbers should show. Numbers should just show. There should be a way we have to measure these things, right? And it's just important for us not to be biased. And this is why I would encourage that HR people in 2025 should please know how to use Excel. I'm not saying know how to use everything as it has to do with metrics, but HR analytics, you might not be an analytics specialist, but at the very least, know how to play around numbers. Because I have mentioned that when you are going to speak to your CEO or you are speaking to someone, if you are saying, oh, I found out that in the last 1 year, 20% of people have done this, 50% of this have done that. Within the last 2 years, 80% of this has happened. 10 people have done this, 3 people have done this. The conversation gets richer. Or you are talking with respect to another organization. Okay, you are within real estate, for instance, like 10 real estate companies. And that's the beautiful thing about communities like HR mentorship, where if you go on any of the groups that you belong, I belong to group 4, for instance. If you go to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I don't know how many we do have, and you try to connect with somebody within telecoms, I promise you will find. Or you are trying to connect with somebody within agriculture, you are just going to find. So it's important for us to exploit, ask questions. How is it done in your own area? And then you try to replicate these things. Again, that's just benchmarking, trying to understand what is happening in other industries within which you play, right? So we said transparency. Metrics are important because I'm not going to be doing certain things for you just because I like you. I'm just going to be doing these things because that is what I can see, right? Of course, improvement. All these trainings, all these things we are talking about, we will be able to identify what is working and what is not working. So if it's for customer service, like we use, that example that we used, and you find out that our customers are happy, you give them a survey, they are talking about, oh, customer service. There are some places you go to and the customers will stay with you. They will stay on you. They will not leave you until your issues are resolved. In fact, they will call you, they will send you a message or email to find out if you are finally resolved. Can anybody relate, maybe in your organization, or you've tried to purchase a product and after that time, you had a certain level of follow-up? Is there anybody that can relate with that? Chat box, please. Chat box. So sometimes there's just this extra. In some organizations or in some spaces, for you to consider yourself good, then you are really, really good. Yeah, thank you very much, Agnes. For you to consider yourself good, you are really, 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 really good. So if you are, Jumia, thank you. So we do have these people that they understand these things, and we can bring this to our organization, right? We can bring this to our organization, send emails, send emails after people leave, do these particular things, and these things don't just give extra. So when you are trying to have that conversation as to what has been the extra things that you have done, you can begin to pick all these things time after time. I remember I mentioned that we should have systems where they are reporting, like reporting lines. So even if you don't set goals at the beginning of the week or you set, it really doesn't matter. But I think I want to prescribe a weekly reporting system. So, it's like before I come and ask you, what are you working on? You come and tell me, that kind of thing. And for some of us that have worked in certain places, that time, that moment where your manager or your MD is coming to ask you, what are you working on? Things have already started going south already. I don't know if there's anybody who can relate with this, right? That when people, it's just like, let's look for scenarios. I've had people say that anytime you see a husband telling a wife, don't you know I'm the husband? Or don't you realize that I'm your husband? Or don't you, there's already a problem. Anytime people are having to, there are some people who would also tell you too that if there's something you want to do for me and I ask for it before you do it for me, maybe I will not appreciate it as much as you would have done it yourself spontaneously. Do you understand? Sometimes, well, I don't want to go into Valentine conversation, but plenty things happened yesterday. I almost thought that, I don't know if yesterday's Valentine has been the highest because everywhere was on fire. Everywhere was on fire. And a lot of things were just flying around. But the point of this conversation is thoughtfulness, right? And it works even in our HR practice. If you are having to think of yourself as HR manager, if you are having to ask somebody for reports time after time, there's already an issue. So as an HR person, that's why we do things like, even when we do performance appraisal, we say things like, appraise yourself. Now, when it's time for election in Nigeria, for instance, go and, just do these things yourself. So HR people should create systems in place where people know that before COB on Friday, all reports must come in. So if a report does not come in, you have to be given very strong reasons why that report is not coming in, right? So before MD comes to ask you questions, before MD comes to ask you, what is the update on that? You understand. That's why when we talked about certain things we should take note of, when we're talking about aligning strategy with business and all that, I talked about agility. So even if you don't take everything, because most times when we deliver trainings, you never really know what part of the training we hit one person, what other parts we hit another person, but emphasis on agility. So this slowness, this, I will do it, I will talk to Kunle tomorrow, I will talk to that line manager tomorrow. Things really should happen very fast. That is the line of improvement. Yeah, that is the line of improvement. And of course, growth. By the time you are showing your strategic input, your business partnering as much as possible, even you as HR, you will grow. And like I was saying to some persons earlier today, as much as we advocate growth for other people as HR, let's also discuss our growth prospects within organizations. Just in case people never talk about growth, right? People never champion things for us. We should try and champion our growth here and there, right? So how do we measure the impact of HR activities on organizational performance? Going back to this conversation, talking about metrics and me advising or telling people to say, please try and add analytics to your part of HR. We have had several conversations. This is probably, if you go to Oluyemi Adeosun on YouTube, you will see plenty discussions. And some of those discussions, I'm very sure that we have talked about some tools here and there, where you can at least build dashboards, very basic dashboards. What's the percentage of male in your organization versus female in your organization? Do you have something visual that can show, except all those long reports? Do you have something like a pie chart that will show that 45% of people in this organization are male, the other 55% they are female? How many people are from this, are from that? How many people are high performers? And I promise you, this is not a training for Excel or anything like that, but if you know how to use your pivot tables on Excel, you know how to use your pivot table, you know how to use your slicers, they are not difficult. If you watch YouTube videos, you watch them for maybe an hour or two, and I want to hope that there's at least one person who will do this thing that I've said. Go and learn, how can I use pivot tables, right? How can I use pivot tables? How can I use slicers on Excel? Pivot tables and slicers, those are like two things that you do. So you have all your data, the names of people, their age, their departments, address, and all that. Put them into a table on Excel, right? Go and learn how to use pivot tables. Thank you very much. And create a dashboard. It's not hard. I promise you, it's not hard. People just run away from these things, maybe because they've not spent some time. And then you create a simple dashboard where, imagine that on a Monday morning, you have never created a dashboard before for your organization. And for those of us that we do Monday morning meetings, we come around for meetings, and then everybody's just flexing. Tell us what's going on in your department. And for some of us that, we have conference rooms and we have monitor screens and we can connect and all. And HR is just standing up. I discovered that in the last 6 months, from HR data that we have, this represented. And trust me, pivot tables and all, you see all the graphs. If you have used pivot tables here, you can agree with me. You'll see bar charts there. You'll see pie charts there. You see histograms, you see line charts. You use line charts to talk about progression in time. Let's say you want to talk about what has been happening in the organization since 2017 to 2024. So you're like, 2017, okay, employee engagement was this. Then it came down to this. Then it came down. So what is happening? Why are we having, it could be turnover. It could be turnover. Yeah, turnover is a very good thing you can put on your line chart. So I charge the people attending this webinar today. Let there be one person that will try to look at that. And how do you get your turnover rate? How do you get your turnover rate for maybe a particular year in 2020? Number of leavers versus divided by number of people that have remained in the organization. I'm not very sure what the formula is, but get to know what figures. Attrition, thank you. Yeah, get to know what figures, what's the percent of people that left in 2020, in 2021, in 2022. If that's the problem of your organization, you are showing it on a line chart, and you can show that in 2020, it was high. In 2021, it came down. In 2024, it was high again. Now we're in 2025. What are we doing wrong? So you present that, and come on, you've not done something like that before, but it's that you have seen that there is more to the actual HR. That is your growth. That is your growth. That is your growth. And these are the kind of things that you would tell in the next place where you're going to, right? When they're trying to interview you, they're trying to ask, it's like, there is something more to my HR. There is something, I know recruitment is beautiful, this is fine, that is nice, but there is something more to my HR. So, we can have plenty conversations around that. So how do we, for effective HR practices, why do we need to measure? Why do we need to measure? By measuring HR effectiveness, organizations can assess the impact of the efficiency and impact of HR strategies. So all the HR strategies that you've been bringing from time to time, you want to check for their impact. You want to see valuable insight from internal trends. Remember I mentioned in attrition, turnover right now. So by the time you are showing these things and people can understand, you can draw valuable insights. Right? And I literally tell people within HR most times, before you want to jump on strategies, please always ask that question of why? Why? Like why? Okay, people are coming late to work and it's becoming rampant. Why? Is it a culture problem? Is it that most of the people you are hiring? That's why we said when we are even doing recruitment, let's make sure that we are doing a lot of things, right? So is it that you have not paid attention to proximity of people? So you are hiring people, your office is at Songutedo, but because you have found a good candidate that stays at, again, please, this is an open conversation and people can, but sometimes we understand that proximity can be a reason why people come late or not come late. Proximity can wear people out at some point in time. And that's why sometimes recruiters will say, you know what, for your own sake, it's better you are close to, where you are working at that point in time. But of course, there are some people who have argued that I did my NYSC in Ilorin, for instance, and while I was serving, there was this man, his family and all that, they were in Ilorin. Yeah, they were in Ilorin. He was working in Lagos, and he could go to Lagos to work. He could go to Lagos about 2-3 times in a week, and they were doing fine at that point in time. Those are extreme measures. I'm just trying to say that ordinarily you want to check for proximity. How many HRs here will be hiring for a particular role, and you see on the CV that your Lagos role, the person is coming from Ilorin, and you still hire the person, even if the person is good? You understand, even if the person is good. So there are a lot of hats, but of course, from different trends that you can see, you are able to draw valuable insight here and there, right? And again, show evidence. We have talked about evidence. Anything that you don't back by data, you don't back by visuals or analytics, it's just going to be your opinion. And sadly, opinions can count. Opinions may not count. Yeah. Felicia, thank you for that. Some people claim that they have relatives close to the place of work. You know, as much as we can try to, check for the authenticity of these things, we really are just saying that proximity is just important. If they do have a place close to that area, a friend, somewhere they can swap, somewhere they can, why not? It's really beautiful. But we know that people lie about these things sometimes. I'm like, I have a friend, I have a brother. When they come and they get hired, it never works that way. But if there's a way, if there will be a way for you to vouch the integrity of some of these things before you give out a offer letter, right? You can put that in place. Thank you very much. Relocation packages, that is also awesome. We have hired somebody before who was in Abuja. All the interview stages that we did happened online. We never met the person physically, and we loved the person. And then we relocated the person from Abuja to Lagos. And then there was a commitment to that too. That really works. Some companies give relocation to exceptional talent. They might want to do that. Some companies also do have accommodation. So these are things that we can put together here and there, right? Let there just be a statement. Let just be a statement that my performance as HR can be tracked. My performance as HR can be tracked. So you can't be asking me what I'm doing. Don't forget that I said any system that makes people ask you what you are doing is already faulty. And let's even take this out of HR. I've given that analogy before. If I have to prove or if I have to ask for certain things from you and ask for it means you have not done something right in the first place. So being on top of your game, sending reports, sending emails, just to substantiate some things that you have said, putting all of these overarching strategies together. Some of us might need to watch this again, having a little from here, a little here. How can you measure, okay, if somebody leaves today? In fact, it's a whole lot. It could be having a pipeline in place, saying that, you know what, nobody is going to keep me stranded in this my HR practice. There are some of us within our teams, we have superstars. That that if maybe salespeople, for instance, that this salesperson is a high performer, but the person is misbehaving. Or, there are some superstars we have within our organization, and they know that they are superstars, and they too, sometimes they misbehave because they feel like, if they leave the organization, you cannot replace them or stuff like that. So sometimes it might just be that you are keeping a pipeline. When you are not even recruiting, you have a system in place that if anybody decides to shock you today, that they are not coming to work tomorrow for whatever reason, you are not going to be stranded, right? It can be a trainee kind of program, management trainee kind of program, different systems that we want to set in place, right? Why is it important for us to know our KPIs? KPIs are quantifiable. Look at this man here looking at dashboards. So please, HR people, add something to your first quarter. Yes, first quarter is ending by the end of March. Try and play around dashboards, right? When you are submitting a report, add a little bit of a visual, even if it's one graph. It's not possible for me to follow up on most of us to say, did you add a visualization to your report and all? Let's just believe that I've said it and one or two persons will catch it. And I'm saying this because in my day-to-day life, I do dashboards almost every time. It's really beautiful. When you put to management, you write some little things, you show some visualization, it just makes a lot of sense. So in your, at least one person, in your first quarter, add some visualization to your report, let there be some extras, and you can shoot. And you can see that this person might be HR, but it might be MD, but then he's just looking at those graphs, and then he's beginning to think, what insights can I draw from this? So we have moved past traditional HR and just getting to do things because we just want to do things, and there's just a lot more that we can do, right? And there's so much we can do. We can get to understand by tracking KPIs. we are able to assess the effectiveness of every investment that we put together. We're able to assess these things. We're able to get valuable insights, a lot of things that we have measured before. So as we bring this conversation to a close, because we are wrapping up in a little bit of time, what are some top HR KPIs that you can keep track of? And I put these things together so that some of us can ask ourselves week in, week out, how can I measure my impact as to employee engagement, right? What are the measurable things I have put together in place? So when they are even asking, okay, what is HR doing? What is HR doing? Man, I am managing your talent, the so-called sales performance. First of all, I hired that sales performer, right? And I'm managing the person. I mean, the offer letter in the first place, all those performance-based incentives. This is not compensation and benefits, but all the benefit system, everything we are having to put in place, cultural rebranding, everything we are putting in place. I am at the heart of it. But of course, what is my input to employee engagement? Talent acquisition. Whatever we are doing, your greatest asset in any organization is your people, right? Is your people. And again, I've mentioned before that personally, I don't like recruitment or anything like that, but we must do recruitment as HR people. So I've mentioned today, time to hire, effectiveness, success rate of your hire. So what is your input to talent acquisition, right? Training and development. Yay, I'm a training and development person. Yeah, performance management, diversity and inclusion. How can people say they are carried along? And you are adopting a stakeholder approach. Let me quickly say this too, that please, as HR people, don't do HR alone. Always have a stakeholder approach to your HR management. Have a stakeholder approach as in carry line managers along. I've said this to people before that your line managers oftentimes can issue queries and systems where HR is the person, every time HR is the person who must issue query, there's something line managers should issue. Let it be that if HR is issuing a query, then the matter has escalated out of the person's department. So sometimes it can even be instituting training for managers. There's a lot of talk on employee training. There are plenty managers that need these trainings, right? Management kind of trainings. You would see some things that management people will do, and sometimes you'll be in shock. And this person is a manager, right? So some of these things are things that we put in place. We've talked about metrics and analytics. You can use digital platforms. I have facilitated one or two trainings here where I talked about ClickUp, such a beautiful, if you don't want to do Excel and all that, think ClickUp. You can get this visualization that this person is looking at. You can do this on ClickUp, right? You can, but of course, if I'm going to give an assignment, or if I'm qualified, thank you very much for the things I'm seeing in the chat box. I totally agree with you. If I can give you an assignment, if there's anything like that, please try and put that down. Maybe it's just a personal bias, but it will just add some more. It will just add some more color to the HR and the traditional things that we do, right? And some different tools we can, of course, our HRIS, depending on what you use in your organization, we have different HRS that have analytical tools where you can show these things. But like I said, if you don't have in your organization, come on, use Excel, right? If I want to stretch it a little bit further, I can say use Power BI. But these things are really not hard. At least start from Excel, start from Excel. And just a lot of things that you can do. There are performance management softwares. Some of them are free online that you can also try out, right? I have said this before. If you go on Google and you say free performance management software, you see some examples. You can do like a demo session with these people, and then you can see how these things work. I'm seeing a question there. I would please address that as I'm trying to conclude. I think I have about 2 or 3 minutes here and there. Start with goal setting. That is perfect. Yeah, start with goal setting. Business and intelligence tools, please. There are so many, like AI, AI. Thank you. I agree. I'll come to the chat box and I would speak with I'll speak concerning those things that we have in the chat box. But of course, AI, intelligence, like business intelligence, there are just a lot of things that you can add to just to give color to your work. Survey, project management tools, from Trello to Asana to using your Google Docs properly, collaborating with people, having to see that a lot of things are happening in real time. There's just so much you can do, right? And in summary, it is important that your budget, your specific needs, everything that you are doing are properly evaluated, right? And this KPI thing we have talked about, right? This KPI thing that we have talked about, please don't sleep on them. Don't sleep on them. And look at the conclusion. HR is not just about processes. Yeah, it's a driver of success. It's a driver of results. So it's not just process. Results, right? Results. How can I align this to results? What is my contribution to results? Aligning activities with business goals. We have said all these things, and having a way to track so much. I'm coming to the chat box. I like the excitement there, and it's just so much for us. All right. We would have to draw the curtain here, and let me just go and before I give this on to Dr. Yeah, I totally agree with all of these things there. How that young talents, engage them. We have talked about this, just so much, just so much. If you look at these contributions, they are really, really beautiful, right? You are really beautiful. I'm saying something like you need prayer. Well, we need prayer to almost everything. But of course, I see very valid. Don't be a lonely HR. We have said that. Don't be a lonely HR. Decentralize your roles. Delegate when you have to delegate. Goal setting. And I can agree with all these things. Of course, the spirituality of the HR, please. Let's say our prayers as much as, please, we have HR fellowship, HR mentorship fellowship. And we can come and pray every Wednesday. That's just on the side. Of course, we will add prayer, definitely. Thank you very much for that. I think there was a question that I saw pop up. But before that, I would just like to bring a conclusion to this conversation to say that is for our greatest assets. Let's do more. We can do more. If we have to give a summary to this, remember your balance scorecard. Whatever initiatives you are doing, let it have financial relevance. Learning and growth. Your internal processes, let it have, and of course, your customer service, let it have as much relevance. And we can put all of these things together and we'll be better off. And don't forget the fact that we are in a system where people who are born in 2003, for instance, or 2004, they are doing crazy things. Do you understand? So we talked about diversity today, aligning everybody together, right? Getting from the so-called Gen Zs and Gen Alphas and the Gen Betas and whatever. I know we'll get to Gamma and wherever we are going to. But of course, drawing from the experience of those who are, ahead, these guys are strategy inclined, and we will just be better off. And my final conclusion is, don't wait till anybody comes to ask you, what are you doing? Show what you are doing. And let it be that they are discussing on what you are showing, the report you have presented before you want to even have any discussion. So any system that makes people come to ask you, what are you doing, is already faulty. On that ground, I would like to draw a close. Thank you very, very much. Let me check if Doctor is on the call. I thought I saw him a couple minutes back. Okay. I know the last time. Thank you very much. I see weekly report. These things are very, very awesome. I know the last time we had a conversation, he was in transit, but let me just look at monthly reports, quarterly reports, and all of these things. They are just very important. I think there was a question that was asked. I don't know, Felicia. I thought I saw a question. I'm trying to get that, but somehow I'm still not. If they don't ask, do and send to them. In fact, who is this person? This person just summarized this webinar. in how many seconds, right? If your MD is not asking you for reports and all, please do. That's like I don't think there's any summary that is bigger than this. All right. Thank you, Felicia. I'm looking at the chat box now. How well can HR ensure top management engage with HR reports? Where management has so much concentration on return on investment and more conscious about cost reduction than any other thing. Okay, so in a situation like this, most business leaders are, let me say, salespeople in scale quotes. They just want to make the money. They just want to see what makes the money, what does not make the money. And somehow you have to, that's why I said we need to understand the business. We have to speak their language. When we are working in certain industries, let's also say, oh, we agree with them. And one of the reasons why we are going to pitch in any strategy is we know they want to reduce costs. So whatever we are reporting, whatever we are doing, should have an element of what they like. I don't know if this makes sense. So if cost reduction is, for instance, some organizations, they like advertising, they like certain things. But in this particular organization, they just want ROI and all that. Let it be that, I've said this before, that sometimes you start by introducing initiatives that are free, that will not cost anything, right? But would have a relevant impact. You remember the times I mentioned that for you to give any presentation in my organization, so far I'm your HR, you must do PowerPoint presentation. And over time, we had instances where we needed to do a pitch, we needed to put, it was like customer service day, it was this, it was that. We needed digital social media people to work with customer service and all. And people knew how to do Canva. And we had a lot of things that we were doing internally without employing any so-called external graphics person in that sense. We could present, we could use templates and all that. And, these things was just making sense. And it's like, oh, wow, it's making sense. That's just an example. So whatever you are doing, whatever reports you are doing, please put these elements. That is one. Now, another thing is, please sometimes call their attention to these reports. And when you call their attention to these reports, not to the entire report, say in one of the reports that I sent, I mentioned this particular thing, kindly take a look at it, right? Sometimes some of those people don't do that. They don't do that intentionally. They don't do that intentionally. Sometimes some of these people have so much on it. Sometimes they are not just interested, but you can call their attention to specific things, right? Another thing that you can also do, aside calling, I've always said that an informal approach to these things can work sometimes, where you go into the person's office, you are having that conversation with the person, like, you and the person, you are just talking about it, and you're like, oh, I even sent an email about that. Please take a look at that. And sometimes it breaks these people down. But if you notice that there's a particular wing of conversation, ROI, every time, cost reduction, just try and look for those initiatives or those elements of your report that is speaking that language. Perhaps it can buy them over for a little bit of time. Yeah. Okay, I'm trying to see the chat box again. I don't know if Doctor has joined. We are bringing this to a close. I'm trying to see the chat box. Wait to see your report before decisions are made. How has attrition reduced production hours affecting in profit? I'm not seeing the entirety of that conversation. I'm having a lag, but I want to believe that that person is trying to give a suggestion. I want to believe that. So other than that, are there other comments? Are there questions? Are there questions? Are there comments? Are there comments? Are there questions? Speak the language of management, know about the business. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. Yeah, speak their language. Sometimes there are just some overarching things that they like, and you can tailor your report in that sense. Just start from somewhere. Yeah, just start from somewhere, essentially. Okay. Any other question or comment? Let me try to prompt Doctor. Let me try to prompt Doctor to see. Okay, I can see a message. All right. I just received a notification from him. He's having some struggle with network. So I think this is a convenient place to turn down our curtain, and I know we can do better. And for those of us that said we should add spiritual elements to our HR practice, I totally agree with you, please. Maybe we just did not put that in the slides for today's class, but I totally agree with you that HR, please keep praying. And my final word for today's class would be, or today's learning session would be that the most successful organizations are those that understand the value of their people, and HR is at the heart of this. HR is at the heart of this. And I feel like if you take out HR from the equation, so many other things will fall apart. Yeah. So other than that, thank you very much for joining. It's been an amazing time. And at this point, we can say, have a beautiful evening. Okay. I'm seeing doctor in the house already. I don't know, doctors, are we about calling it an evening? Okay, perhaps still the network struggle. So I mean, there are some persons in the chat box saying a couple of things. Thank you very much, and I think we can just call it an evening. Have a very beautiful night, everyone.